To understand why Jungkook's presence is disruptive, it is necessary first to consider the historical dominance of American pop. For most of the 20th and 21st centuries, American artists such as Michael Jackson, Madonna, Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, and Justin Bieber have defined what it means to be a pop icon. Their music distribution was facilitated by powerful record labels like Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Music Group, which controlled global marketing and distribution pipelines. Beyond the music itself, American pop stars benefited from the Hollywood system, talk shows, award shows, and cultural diplomacy that extended their influence globally. When an American artist released an album, it was not just a domestic event, but a worldwide phenomenon, amplified by the sheer scale of US media infrastructure. Non-American artists often had to relocate, sign with US labels, or adapt their music to Western tastes to be considered part of the global conversation. This monopolistic control meant that American stars rarely viewed non-US competition as a serious threat. European acts could succeed regionally. Latin music could break into global charts occasionally. But none truly challenged the idea that American pop was the default global standard. Until now. Jungkook's entry as a structural disruption. Jungkook's entry into the American market is fundamentally different from previous international acts. As the youngest member of BTS, he was already accustomed to navigating global stages. However, his solo work has positioned him uniquely. He is not trying to enter America through the traditional system, but rather redefining what success in America looks like. His songs chart on Billboard without heavy reliance on US-based promotion cycles. His music videos achieve record-breaking streams without the same financial machinery that typically supports American stars. This independence is unsettling for the US industry because it suggests that the once essential gatekeepers, labels, award shows, talk shows, and radio stations are no longer the only path to success. Jungkook has built a model where global fan engagement and digital consumption can outweigh traditional promotional structures. Moreover, his artistry spans multiple genres, allowing him to compete directly with American pop artists on their home turf. Tracks infused with R&B, EDM, and pop structures position him alongside names like The Weeknd, Justin Bieber, and Shawn Mendes. Yet, unlike those artists, Jungkook carries the additional weight of being a cultural representative of K-pop and Korea, giving him a dual identity that strengthens his reach. The disruption is not only musical but cultural. American pop thrives on cultural exports, shaping global trends. Jungkook reverses that dynamic by exporting Korean culture into the American mainstream. The implications are profound. If a non-Western artist can dominate without assimilating into American industry rules, then the monopoly of US pop loses legitimacy. Another dimension where Jungkook challenges American dominance is branding, US. Pop stars often rely on heavy public relations management to maintain relevance, shaping narratives through interviews, award show appearances, and talk show circuits. Jungkook's branding strategy is markedly different. Rather than saturating media outlets with orchestrated appearances, his image is amplified through direct digital engagement and high-profile brand collaborations, such as his ambassadorship with Calvin Klein. The Calvin Klein partnership illustrates this difference vividly. In the past, such collaborations were monopolized by Western celebrities who represented the pinnacle of global cool. Jungkook's role as the face of the brand demonstrates a reversal. Instead of American stars exporting their cultural cachet globally, a Korean star is setting the global tone, with American consumers aligning themselves with his image. This creates unease for American artists, who see their monopoly over cultural branding erode. Artistic adaptability and genre versatility. American pop artists often carve niches within particular genres: B-pop for The Weeknd, singer-songwriter pop for Taylor Swift, or teen pop for Justin Bieber. Jungkook's versatility across genres challenges this compartmentalization. He has released tracks with R&B undertones, pop ballads, EDM-infused hits, and collaborations with Western producers, showing an ability to shift seamlessly without being confined to a single identity. This flexibility positions him uniquely. Whereas US stars compete within narrow genre boundaries, Jungkook competes across several simultaneously, making him a broader threat. His presence on the charts does not only impact one segment of the market, it reverberates across multiple, leaving less space for American stars to maintain unchallenged dominance in their niches. Cultural symbolism and representation. Finally, there is the symbolic element. American pop stars historically represent U.S. cultural dominance. They are seen as ambassadors of Western modernity, individualism, and style. Jungkook's success represents a competing cultural model, one where a Korean artist rooted in K-pop training systems and non-Western values achieves equal or greater relevance. This shift destabilizes a long-held assumption that the American identity is a prerequisite for global cultural leadership. For American stars, this means they are no longer just competing with each other for market share, but also with an artist who symbolizes a broader global transformation. Jungkook is not only an individual competitor, but a marker of systemic change, industry fears, and market shift. The reason Jungkook is described as a threat rather than merely a competitor lies in the ripple effects his presence causes within the American pop industry. His rise forces US record labels, artists, and media structures to confront vulnerabilities they previously ignored. Redefining gatekeepers. The American pop system historically depended on centralized gatekeepers, radio stations, MTV, late-night shows, and award ceremonies to control who rose to prominence. Jungkook's success bypasses many of these mechanisms. His global fanbase can mobilize without relying on American radio spins or late-night interviews. For gatekeepers, this represents a loss of control. If a Korean artist can dominate Billboard, streaming platforms, and brand campaigns without their validation, then their relevance diminishes. This is threatening to US industry players who have built entire business models on the assumption that they are the arbiters of global pop culture. Financial implications. The American industry is not only about culture, but also about economics. Concert tours, merchandise, sponsorships, and album sales feed into a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem. Jungkook's ability to attract sponsorships, sell out arenas, and move merchandise globally shifts revenue streams away from US artists and into the orbit of non-American figures. For US record labels, this creates financial insecurity. The more resources global companies invest in Jungkook or similar figures, the fewer resources remain for promoting American acts. This creates an environment where even well-established US stars may face reduced investment, diminishing their long-term stability. Pressure on American artists. Beyond economics, there is psychological pressure. American stars now operate under the awareness that they are not only competing domestically, but also globally. When Jungkook releases a track that outperforms theirs on streaming platforms, it forces them to reconsider strategies. This can lead to rushed releases, forced collaborations, or overemphasis on chasing trends, moves that dilute their artistry. The presence of a competitor like Jungkook raises the stakes. It shifts the narrative from who is the biggest American star to who can survive against global competition. That transformation is unsettling for artists accustomed to being measured only against domestic peers. While the immediate impact of Jungkook's rise can be measured in chart positions, streaming numbers, and brand endorsements, the deeper consequences extend much further. The American pop industry, built on a century of dominance, now faces structural changes that cannot easily be reversed. Jungkook's career illustrates both a current disruption and a preview of what global pop could look like in the coming decades. The decline of the American default. For much of modern music history, the assumption has been that American culture sets the default standard. Whether in music, fashion, or entertainment, artists from other regions often sought US validation before being considered truly global. Jungkook undermines this assumption. His success shows that global audiences no longer require American endorsement to define what is relevant. This is not just a symbolic shift, but a practical one. Fans in Latin America, Europe, and Asia do not need to wait for American media coverage to validate Jungkook's releases. Instead, they participate in a simultaneous global cultural moment. This weakens the central role the US once played in global cultural circulation, and for American artists, it means their influence is no longer guaranteed to travel outward with the same authority. The restructuring of music consumption. Streaming platforms are central to this transformation. While American artists once benefited from localized control of distribution, radio, MTV, record stores, the global nature of platforms like Spotify and YouTube levels the playing field. Jungkook's fandom demonstrates how this environment favors international artists with global appeal. His audience does not depend on US exposure. They can access his content instantly, regardless of geography. In this environment, the value of American dominance is diminished. Jungkook's rise signals to the industry that the next generation of stars may not need to be based in Los Angeles or New York to achieve global relevance. For the American pop establishment, this decentralization is deeply threatening because it undermines one of their most enduring advantages: geographic centrality. Pressure on branding and sponsorship models. Global brands once preferred American stars because of their perceived global influence. Jungkook's high-profile collaborations suggest that this model is changing. If an international star can move products as effectively or more effectively than American figures, then corporations will shift their investments accordingly. For US artists, this creates a competitive disadvantage. They no longer occupy the automatic top tier of brand desirability. Instead, they must compete with global figures like Jungkook, who bring not only Western markets, but also massive audiences in Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. In business terms, this diversifies the sponsorship landscape, but dilutes the monopolistic value of American pop stars. Cultural diplomacy and soft power. The American pop industry has long been a tool of cultural diplomacy, spreading US values and aesthetics globally. Jungkook's global presence demonstrates that soft power is no longer exclusively in America's hands. Korean cultural exports, embodied through K-pop, are competing directly with US cultural exports. This rivalry has long-term implications. If Korean pop continues to thrive globally, supported by figures like Jungkook, then cultural narratives will diversify in ways that weaken American influence. For the US, this is not only a commercial concern, but also a geopolitical one, as cultural dominance often translates into political and economic soft power. Shifting definitions of pop. Perhaps the most fundamental implication is a redefinition of what pop itself means. In the past, pop was often synonymous with American pop. Jungkook's presence forces a reconsideration. Pop is no longer confined to Western identity markers, but can emerge from different languages, cultures, and training systems. This redefinition destabilizes American dominance because it removes the linguistic and cultural advantages that US stars once relied on. English language dominance is still important, but Jungkook demonstrates that being Korean is not a barrier. It is, in fact, part of his distinct appeal. If pop becomes truly global, then American artists become one group among many rather than the central authority. Conclusion. Why Jungkook represents the biggest threat? In the context of global music history, Jungkook's career represents a turning point. He is not the first international artist to enter the American market, but he is the first to do so with such scale, consistency, and independence from US systems of validation. His ability to compete with and often surpass American stars across charts, streaming platforms, branding, and cultural influence signals that the old monopolies of the US pop industry are eroding. American stars now find themselves in a competitive landscape they cannot fully control. The presence of Jungkook forces them to adapt to a new reality. Global audiences are no longer automatically aligned with American culture, and USN gatekeepers no longer define the boundaries of success. In this environment, Jungkook is not merely a competitor, but a systemic disruptor. He demonstrates that the US pop industry is vulnerable in ways it has not been for generations. For these reasons, Jungkook can be accurately described as the biggest pop threat America has faced. His career trajectory challenges the foundations of US cultural dominance, suggesting that the future of global pop will be defined not by one nation, but by a truly international field of artists. In this new landscape, America no longer holds exclusive control, and Jungkook stands at the center of that transformation.